Welcome to the Black Girls Heal podcast, where we talk about changing unavailable relationship patterns, healing unresolved trauma, and building a healthy relationship with first you and then others. Every episode, we will talk about actionable advice that you can apply today to break unhealthy patterns and grow your self-worth. I'm Sheena Tubbs. Let's begin. Ladies, welcome back to the Black Girls Heal podcast. I am so excited. I am over the moon to be recording today's episode again today. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I've been on hiatus for the past month. I decided to take a self-imposed vacation from the podcast to just have a break and reset and work on loving me and focusing on me and doing things outside of the podcast. And it has been so incredible. I feel very refreshed. I feel very a la Nicki Minaj. I took some time away. Now I'm back, game time. You know, I cannot wait to share with you the things that I learned over this hiatus and also some things coming up because of this hiatus. And so that's what today's episode is going to be about. It's going to be recapping some personal things that I've learned, been doing, that I want to share with you. And then next week, we'll get back to our general topics. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you up front I made a list of 6 things that I wanted to focus on during my break from the podcast that I wanted to really get clear on. And so there may be some overlap as I talk about these things because they're all very interconnected, but I want to tell you what they are. So these are not in any specific order. I may talk about them in a different order, but the first one is I wanted to go through our recovery school curriculum. So for those of you who are not aware, outside of doing the podcast, outside of our weekly newsletters, outside of the text message list, which also was on hiatus, but our text list where I send out a couple of inspirational texts every week. And then also we have long form social media posts. And then also I have a blog on our website. I'm constantly giving the girls things for free. Outside of that, I have our main signature program called the Recovery School. And I've been working on revamping and looking at it for the last several months just to improve our student experience and, see if I can up-level it and upgrade it. And because it is the main way that I support women. So with me doing all of the things, I hadn't had time and space. Well, I've been working on it, but I wanted more extended time and space to really go through it and work through it. And so that was the first thing. The second thing, I wanted to self-assess for ADHD. That's a whole thing that I'm going to tell you all about, but I'm just going to plant that right here. Me and ADHD and having a later diagnosis, potentially as an adult woman. The third thing is I wanted to get clear on what I was manifesting. This stage of my life is very different than any other stages of my life that I've been in. And so with me constantly working the great thing is at this stage of my life, everything that I do are things that I love. So it's not like I have been clogged up with things that have been life draining for me, but I really needed to get clear on as I enter into, next level me, what is it that I wanted so that I wasn't just kind of floating and going through life as normal. And also so that I could be clear that I was really living in gratitude for what I have. I've talked about it here on the podcast, and I definitely talk about it with my students, which is sometimes you can be working and so focused and you miss the fact that all the things that you asked for, that you prayed for, that you've been working for, the growth that you have been striving for has been in front of you and that you've already reached those milestones. And because you're not actually taking time to be present and to be grounded, you'll miss it. And you'll always be living in the future, which means you're constantly unsatisfied, which is not what I wanted. I wanted to be very present in the moment. And I wanted to get clear on what it is that I was growing. So I'll talk about that more. I also wanted to drown myself in feminine energy and self-care. And I really wanted to really highlight what that looks like for me, what, the systems of self-care and really pouring into me in a different way would look like, which I'll talk about. And just for a little bit of context, I've always been great at personal development for growth and leadership state. And somewhere around the beginning of this year, late last year, I really started to learn more about, which I know this is a huge trend right now that people are talking about, which I'm actually cool with. I hope that this is a trend that stays. I hope that this is a conversation that stays. But I shifted my focus from personal development for other people's sake to personal development for my sake, which is really how I have interpreted this feminine energy movement, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. And then I wanted to get clear on how I educate women publicly versus privately. So I made the list. I just listed all of the things that I'll be doing for y'all and doing for other people for free to get information out there to help women no matter where they are, no matter if I ever, get to know your name or if you ever buy a product or not, to make sure that I'm helping women and serving them. With this ADHD diagnosis and just coming around the end of several years of teaching women online, coaching women online outside of traditional therapy and just seeing what works and what doesn't work and getting more clear on the woman that I serve, also looking at, okay, what do my programs look like? What is the best way to serve women? What is the best way to help them have capacity? Where are there any bottlenecks, if any, and how do I correct them so that everybody gets what they need? Everybody from the audience at large, which are all of you, to the people who I get the pleasure to work with one-on-one in my group programs. And so, yeah. And then also, do I want to return to doing private work? Can I return to doing private work? Is that too much of a overextension where that might lead to burnout? And then the last one is I wanted to work on imposter syndrome and comparison with other people in this space. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into this. I'm going to jump straight to ADHD. So ADHD was on my list of things to look at because I've had a suspicion for several years that I may qualify for the inattentive type of ADHD, and the type that is all about difficulty following through with things, with being consistent, with paying attention to details, to being forgetful, to no matter what structures and things you put in place, it just never works out for you, and having anxiety and things around that. And so I never got deep enough into it because I would get distracted. Hello. Or I would, randomly find some things that would talk about ADHD, but that didn't quite fit where I was at that time, or at least I didn't have awareness for my growth areas because I was still very much, I can do everything myself and I got this. But recently, I was listening to a podcast by some people I consider my business mentors, and they were talking about being business owners with ADHD. And I clicked that episode so quickly because it was the people I really love, and then also it was this topic that had been in the atmosphere around for a while. And so I'm listening to the episode, and I'm like, all of these things are me. Every single one of these things, all of these things that I've tried to overcompensate for, all of these things that I have tried to put in systems or talk to people about, I have Googled, I have talked to people who are procrastination experts, I have practiced self-compassion from here to there and back again to try to navigate what it feels like when it is really hard for you to get through things, when you try your best to get something done and still details are missing. And even as I'm describing this, part of the reason why I also had some barriers to it is what it sounds like you're describing is the human condition. Everybody forgets sometimes. Everybody sometimes doesn't want to do things and puts things off to the last minute. And, nobody's perfect. And so when you talk about the symptoms and how it's impacting you, it is very, very easy for people who mean well, who really want to see you win and want you to feel good about yourself, to downplay what's going on for you. Meanwhile, you're really feeling like something is missing, something is wrong. And so instead of you getting access to help and support and validation, or validation that would encourage you to continue to look for support, what you think is, okay, well, these are things that everybody deals with. These are things that most people can relate to. Well, I guess I'll just, pick myself up by my bootstraps and get a new planner and get a new system and make a new promise to myself, get some new stickers. I mean, whatever it is that you may have done, if you relate to symptoms of ADHD, which I'll tell you what I checked off for myself in a moment. You go and you try to do it, and then it doesn't work out, and those of you who've been following the podcast or following my platform for a long time, you have seen the impact of that. You have seen things with emails with grammar mistakes, and no matter how many times I try to proofread it, you have seen the starting and stopping of initiatives. You have seen a lot of things, initiatives that had to be amended because the capacity for just me being a one-person team for all of these years, until recently, until last year is when I started hiring, and I'm going to start hiring more people now because of just learning about this. But, this is kind of what happens. So anyways, I hear this podcast that's talking all about me. I listened to a couple of other things, podcasts that I started before that were with experts in ADHD, and did a couple of self-assessments. I'm like, yeah, this is like every single box is me. So I made an appointment to meet with a psychiatrist for medication. I had always, even before my adulthood, where I had this inkling that I may have ADHD, I remember being in school and wishing I was more of an adventurous risk taker kid because I was very much a goody two shoes. Wishing I was more of a risk taker because I was like, man, I wish I had something to help me focus, thinking about medication. And, I would hear people who did have ADHD, and typically it was a boy in the class. The thing about ADHD is most often girls in school, school-age girls are missed when it comes to ADHD because it most often presents in us differently, especially if it's inattentive type versus boys. Also, I was an overachiever. I was good at being resilient and successful in a lot of different things, in a lot of different ways. Also, so much of my self-worth and so much of how I felt special was tied to my performance in school. So I was going to do my best in all of those things as well. So it was never on the radar, even though I had some things going on in the background and at home that would denote that I could use some help with things. And just as life has gone on, as I have become a mom, as I've become a business owner, as I may become a business owner times 2, which stay to the end of the podcast episode because I'm going to talk about that, because that is what I'm super excited about for everybody listening to the podcast today. But yeah, just things wouldn't work out. So I made an appointment with a psychiatrist, and he told me that I totally qualified for ADHD. And so let me go ahead and tell you the things that I personally checked off as far as inattention. So carelessness, as far as when it comes to mistakes that I've made, even when I try my best, proofread, go slow, all those things. Difficulty staying focused. I can't tell you how often I have made a to-do list. Like, in fact, this might be more of an everyday experience, more often than not when I'm not on top of it. But I will have a to-do list of things for me to do. And let's say there's 6 things. I'll have a to-do list of things for me to do, and I will do a little bit from each of those 6 things throughout the whole day. And because I didn't do one thing fully, or while I was on the way to do one of the 6 things, I was like, oh, I still haven't, started the laundry, or, oh, I have to put that paper away that was on the counter, or, oh, the diaper, I left it on the counter when I was changing my son, like all these other things immediately get in the way and it would distract me. And so I would literally spend the whole day working. And then at the end, I would most likely not have anything to check off. And so as someone who's like trying to work with the system and trying to do things and trying to be on top of things, you can end up feeling really defeated and like, well, where does my time go? And especially if you have people that are reporting to you, or even, you have family members and other people around you, it's like, how do I describe what I've actually been doing all day when I know I've been doing things? I know I haven't been on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, just, piddling away my time. And before anyone wants to DM me or give me advice, this also includes if I do like a top 3 thing, which is a method for those of you who haven't heard, where you just have your top 3 things. And some people do top 3 things once a day, and some people do top 3 things a week. And it also includes if I do a brain dump and all the other stuff. When I tell you I've done all of the methods and all the systems, and I actually still have them in place. But even if I have, okay, I only need to do one thing today. In the process of me doing the one thing, 8 other things come in and get me off track. And the time has passed before I realize that I'm off track, right? So anyways, carelessness, trouble staying focused, poor listening, which I checked just because, I don't know why I checked that, because I listen for a living. Oh, I think it's because sometimes when I'm having conversations with people, I'm constantly thinking of other things that I could be doing. Whoops. I'm not going to take that out because I know somebody needs to hear that for themselves. Being easily sidetracked, difficulty organizing work, how many people, and this is for people who have been diagnosed ADHD and people who are listening like, is she talking about my life? So one thing that happens is I will have so many journals and so many notebooks and so many notepads and so many places that I keep my to-do list. And it is just amazing. And this is both digital, this is analog, this is on Asana, which is a project time management board. It's a lot. And so I've had so many organization systems that work in some ways. I don't want to make it sound like everything I'm doing, nothing has worked because, I'm alive. I'm recording this. You're going to hear this next week. So some things are clicking, but for the most part, all the things that are connected to this fall through. Avoiding lengthy mental tasks, which, comes in with procrastination. Something that I know is going to dominate a lot of time that in my mind, I'm like, I can do 8 other things in the time that's going to take me. Let's see, losing everyday items. Oh my gosh. I would chalk it up to the fact that I'm getting older, right? Like I'm getting older and, you forget things when you get older, you get a little joint pain, like things happen. But I forgot that my mom used to always make fun of me for being forgetful and losing things. And it used to make me so mad because I'm like, you don't know. And like, feel very offended that she would, basically because it felt like she was calling me dumb. But I did. I mean, if someone outside of me has always seen it, my husband had seen it as well. He would always talk about how forgetful I was. And so, I mean, it just happened. And the last thing is being forgetful, right? So all these things have been directly impacting my life, my family functioning, my business, and all those things. So I went to get assessed. I met all the criteria, of course, and unfortunately, I was unable to get medication because I'm still working through some balance with my heart conditions. And so my psychiatrist said that needs to be more stable before I'm able to be put on an ADHD medication, which are all stimulant based. And so that was very, very disappointing to me. I had been looking forward to this appointment as if it was Christmas. I told, once I had a name for like an umbrella that all this was under and not just, okay, you just need to be committed to yourself. I mean, y'all, let me say this. Sometimes it is because you have a secret fear, like, because that's what people will teach about procrastination. Like, there's an emotion that you're avoiding on the other side of it, and that's why you're putting it off. Sometimes it absolutely is the case. Sometimes there is absolutely trauma. Sometimes there is absolutely some bigger thing. Sometimes it totally is because you're a person who doesn't operate in integrity and you are selfish and you have to work out thinking about other people in addition to yourself. And when you do all of that, and it's still not working. And as much as you try to practice self-compassion and understand people are humans and all of that, and the things in your life and the people in your life are affected because you literally cannot, your brain literally cannot focus and follow through and complete tasks. And it has nothing to do with willpower. It has nothing to do with whether or not people are important to you. That is very disheartening. Makes you feel very powerless. It makes you feel very guilty. And especially if you don't have reasoning behind it that takes away from that isn't connected to who you are as a person and your character, you can totally start to adopt messages that you are selfish, that you are irresponsible, that you are a mess, that you are, dysfunctional. I mean, there are so many messages that women and all people, but this podcast is for women, but that women can internalize, and also the biases that will stop us from getting help. Like I said, I was an overachiever, and part of the bias that I had, that I came to realize, that I was like, man, how many times did I inadvertently hurt somebody with this bias? But the bias I had is that I couldn't have this because I was smart. I am smart. I understand things very quickly, very easily, and that's totally a stereotype and totally a harmful stereotype that I had internalized, and that kept me from moving forward. So I got the diagnosis. It's been helpful. And so, since then, I've been doing some health things I'm going to talk about in a moment to continue to help me with my heart health and with getting healthy, because my goal is to get on medication. I know that there's also executive ADHD coaches. There's also therapists. And at this point, y'all, I've done so much work, and I'm not opposed to doing work, but to understand that this is a neurological based decision, an organic condition, I would like external help with that. I would like something to help my body function if it's something related to my body not being able to function. And there are also naturopathic remedies and things that I'm also going to have to look into because I need support now. But I want to be very clear, and I want to say out loud that I personally would like medication, because I think as Black people, we've come such a long way from the stigma against therapy. I see people talk about let's destigmatize therapy. And I feel like for me, maybe it's the channels I follow, maybe it's the groups that I'm in, maybe it's the people who I, consider community. I feel like even if people are not in therapy, every Black person, every person of color I know thinks that therapy could be good. And if they're not in therapy, it's because they can't find someone who looks like them, or that's within their budget, or that's on their insurance, or, there's some kind of barrier that they have that way, but not whether or not anyone thinks that therapy is worthwhile, at least, again, in my circle, speaking for myself. Or they've been in therapy before and it wasn't a good experience, and so they're kind of like disheartened and they want to find somebody else, but they're taking some time to work through that. So I feel like we're good there, but I still think that medication is the next level for that. I think there are so many of us as Black people who are depressed, who are anxious, who have mood disorders, like borderline personality disorder, like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, things that, again, are biologically based. And because of the stigma related to it, we will refuse to get on medication. Also because of the history of how the medical establishment has used and abused Black people here in the States, and I'm sure across the world. I'm more familiar with U.S. history, but, there's bias there. And I just feel like in attempts for us to be strong and be in control, sometimes we are omitting the option to get help and support that could really help us move forward. Because sometimes what it is that what you need is medication so that you have some time and practice to put in the skills and tools that your brain cannot compute when you're off medication, if that makes sense. So back when I was doing therapy, and I'm doing general therapy for everybody, and one of the things that I had to work through with some of my clients who struggle with depression is for the people who are open to help them understand that you can start medication now, because if we've been in therapy for a year or more and you're still severely depressed, right? You feel safe here, you feel seen here, you feel like I'm doing everything I can, and still some things are not moving, then let's look at some medication to help your brain turn on, because at this point it's an organic issue. And then with your brain turn on, then you can start to practice these tools and start to practice all the things we've been talking about and start to feel that difference. And if it is actually just physical or just action and behavior based, that is going to help you not need to return to the medication, because now that your brain is on, you're going to be able to function and build some different muscle memory in your everyday life, right? And then for some people, they would have gotten on medication and found out and did, like, so many people didn't go to the doctor to get blood tests. And then once they got blood tests and they realized, oh, wow, okay, so my actual hormones and enzymes are off. Like, this literally has nothing to do with willpower. It's literally just that my body is not functioning the way that I want it to. And then from there, you can totally make a decision to stay on medication or use natural remedies or natural experiences. But I guess my main point, y'all, is I do not want to see Black people continue to suffer with our mental health and not be open to the full access of experience outside of just prayer, meditation, and yoga. Sometimes we need more than journaling. Sometimes we need more than a pat on the back. Sometimes we need more than just talking to our therapist. And if your therapist is working for you or working with you, they'll be honest with you about that as well. In fact, many of you probably have therapists, if you're relating to this, who have been talking to you about it and you've been denying it because of any of the reasons that I said before. Maybe you've seen really bad side effects with people and you're worried about what that looks like for you, and you've seen it be marked on people's records and used against them and work against their benefits. Like, there are legitimate reasons why people don't want to get medication. So I don't want to take away from that. But what I do want to really emphasize is that if medication or if external outside management is something that would help you, I want you to find that external help, however it looks like for you. And for me, my hope is that I get to a place of heart health that is stable enough so that I can at least try some ADHD medication for me. And I have lots of people who I've worked with, friends and otherwise, who have gone on and off the medication for their own personal reasons. So I have a great support system of people who I can talk to if I get on it and find, oh, actually, this isn't for me, or there are some effects that I don't like, or this works perfectly for me. Great. Yay. And I'm stay on it and I'm championing it forever. I'm totally open to whatever happens for me. And I want everyone to be open to that as well. So there's the part about ADHD. Let's talk about the rest of this stuff. So feminine energy is going to be another topic that I will have an expert come and talk more about to give more of a robust teaching to, because I just feel like it is so important and helped heal a part of me that I didn't know needed to be healed, because in the wording of the feminine energy, masculine energy education, so much of my life has been in masculine energy, in the doing, in the achieving, and the leading, and the planning, and the strategizing. And those are areas that I have done very well my whole life. It's helped me be very independent. It's helped me be very successful. It's actually helped me take care of other people and get things done. But it also did not breed a space for me to look at letting myself enjoy life, letting me enjoy the things I was cultivating. It didn't really help me connect to people, and then the parts of me that were always very good at connecting, I would undervalue because it felt like those were soft skills that weren't as important as the former. And I would really play down a lot of different parts of myself in order to fit this mode of what it looks like to be a successful woman, especially a successful Black woman. And I've had to unlearn some of those things or at least find balance with those things, because there's place for everything, but to add to it so that I can be present and connect with people, be present and connect with myself. And so during this hiatus, I really wanted to focus on that connection energy, on that self-love and beauty energy, on that health and cultivation and pleasure energy. And so some things that I did is I actually connected with, the world is opening back up. I connected with some of my recovery school students in real life. So here in Houston, I messaged out in our Facebook group, our private Facebook group, if anybody was in Houston, if they wanted to connect. Some of the ladies responded that they did. We picked a date and we went and we had brunch, and it was so great. And it was so much fun. And I truly get to work with the most incredible women in the world. And I had such a great time. And it made me so excited for our October retreat, which is still happening. I haven't talked about it because it's been full. But our October retreat is going to be in Galveston at the beach, in these really gorgeous beach houses. And I'm just so excited to connect with women who I've seen their names for years. I have women whose names I've seen for years who follow this platform. And I just feel like it's going to be like a big old family reunion. I have newer women who are new to the community who I'm going to get to know and love on for a whole weekend. And I can't wait. And so that's happening. And then also I decided to plan another trip because your girl's a travel fiend. And now that the little one is older, and again, the world is opening back up, I'm like, all right, let's go ahead and get this passport rebooked. Let's get this girl stamped up. But I'm starting domestically, and I'll be going to New York in September. I'm going to be meeting up with some students again there, and then also, just exploring the city. And so it's so good. It was so good for my soul, and also just practicing being very intentional with my friendships as well. One of the things that I have consistently seen from women in the community, students and otherwise, is just this really deep desire for friendship. And during the hiatus, I actually interviewed a really incredible friendship coach, which I will share that episode soon. But we talked about building friendships as adult women. And we talked about, in order to have a friend, first you have to be a friend. And so a lot of times, especially post-COVID, we want these friendships, but we kind of want people just to show up at our doors. We want people to just automatically be our friends. We want to skip all of the let's get to know you and let's hang out and do this stuff, and just immediately want to connect with someone and want that immediate intensity. And that's not how it works. To have a friend, you have to be a friend. And what that includes is you initiating things. It means you being the one who calls, and you being the one who starts off with intimate updates about yourself, and also checking in on things that they shared with you as well. And it's not always this you expecting people to give to you, right? And so I really focused on being friendship forward this hiatus, and that's also been great. And in regards to my self-care, because I've been doing this for has it been a year? It hasn't been a year. For a little bit over half a year, since I've been really actively incorporating this next level of self-care and feminine pleasure and feminine energy into my life. I had already had some things on the docket or in my routine, but I added in exercise and self-care. And so even though that's probably one of the first things that people talk about, I'd always had these excuses around it. I'm the person who, there was a point in my life where I used to love working out, where my body needed it. And if I wasn't working out, I would actively feel it. And somewhere along the way, I lost that and I got out of the habit. And so what I started to do is, after I dropped off my son at daycare, I went to a local park that has a trail, and I've been walking that every morning. And it's a few miles. And y'all, it has been the most pleasurable thing to be in this gorgeous nature preserve here in my city. And it reminds me of when I went to Honduras a few years ago, or more than a few years ago. But I remember going there and being like, this is gorgeous. And I wish that there was something that looked like this here in my city. And I go around this trail every morning, and it's the beauty of it is just amazing. It very much reminds me of some of the foliage that I saw in Central America. There's different pockets that there are butterflies playing around every morning. I recognize the people now. I get literal, just like warmth and chills in a good way. But I get so excited when I park my car and I'm about to walk out and have this moment of zen and connection. And it's just me walking. I'm not multitasking and listening to podcasts or listening to affirmations. It's truly just me being present in the moment and looking around and being grounded. And it's beautiful. And my body craves it. I'm back at the place where my body craves it. Even over the weekend, because obviously my son doesn't go to daycare, but over the weekend, one time it was a Sunday and my body was like, all right, we didn't go yesterday. I need my walk. And so I was able to sneak out and do my walk. And it's just become part of my routine. And it's been very good for me to have that. Obviously, it's good for my heart health. And I've also said before, be careful what you say when you say you'll never do something, because, God has a way, or the universe has a way, or just life has a way of helping you practice some humility. And I've said actively and distinctly on this podcast and other places how I am not a nature person. I have talked about how there have literally been men in my past who are outdoorsy camping people, and I don't camp and I don't do outdoors. I like the idea of it, but I don't do it. And how I would like try to make myself be that person for them. And so I'll be really bold and loud about that. And now, now I'm like, I might do some hikes or two with people. I might be okay with being out in nature. And so, that's growth, that's evolution. So there's that. And I'm also looking at incorporating other health changes as well, because I feel like that's the last bucket for me when it comes to my self-care and really treating my whole temple, my whole experience with the love and attention that I would want other people to do for themselves as well. So the rest of the things that I worked on and focused on and meditated on and just had some good quiet time about was all business related. So all things related to Black Girls Heal and the organization and where do I see it going? We've been here for a few years. I have taught a lot of things and I needed to get clear on what do I want the broader education of Black Girls Heal to look like? The same as before? Am I going deeper with some things? Are there some ways that I can streamline things as far as education, not only for the women who I get the pleasure to work with as students and as clients, but also for y'all. And when I say y'all, I mean people who I may never get to talk to, who I may never actually get to meet face to face, but you listen to this podcast and you get nuggets, you get gems, you get support, you get validation, and just making sure I'm doing right by everybody. And also doing right by myself, doing right by myself as far as boundaries and what my capacity is. And so I did that. And in the previous version of this podcast episode, I talked a lot about what I was thinking and working through in a lot of detail. And then after I had it recorded, and even after I sent it to my podcast editors, I was like, I don't know if people need to hear all of that. I don't know if they want to hear all that. And even if they did, I don't know if they need to hear like some of the things that I was discussing. So I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version because I do think it would be great to share with you. So in regards to working with my students, I decided, and also with this ADHD awareness and just kind of having things things more clear now on why things have been hard for me in a lot of ways. And of course, I've created systems and things around it, but wanting to make sure that I'm setting myself up for success. I got clarity in programming and stuff. So I'm in process of sharing those things with my students. And so once all that is done, I'll share what programs and what things that we're going to continue to do for everybody here on the podcast. And of course, in our social media and newsletters and things like that. But that was definitely something that I was considering. Also, I've been wanting to start a YouTube channel for a long time. I know I mentioned it in my hiatus posts. I'm sure I've mentioned it other places too, for people to subscribe. And right now it kind of just hosts episodes of the podcast, but I have struggled with YouTube because making YouTube videos is a lot of work. And anyone who's ever done it before or tried to do it before, especially if it's not something that you're super passionate about, doing video, it can feel like a very heavy task. So what I've tried to do before, I had to worry about lighting. I had to worry about, getting out things clearly and then editing out flubs, and then don't let me have to go back and say another point later on. It's a whole thing. And I much rather do audio-based teaching. It's a lot easier for me. I can do it on the run. I can do it in the car. I can do it, while my son is napping. And so I realized as I was just watching other people and how they navigate their neurodivergence and come up with their own skills, I realized that several people who I actually follow on YouTube are people who only do audio videos. And they have slideshows and pictures in the background that's related to what they're teaching about. And I'm like, I could totally do that. So I'm going to be doing YouTube videos now, which I'm very excited about. There's been requests from other people as well to put some more direct education on YouTube. So that's going to be coming. And I already found someone to delegate these things to, who is passionate about making videos. And I can just pass on the audio and they can take care of it from there. And then finally, what I am really excited about and that I've been having my head down working on for a while is I am launching, but we are launching a planner that is going to help women really. Actually, I wrote it down. Let me read to you what this planner was built to do. This planner is built to help women organize their lives around prioritizing what makes them feel full while also making room for healthy relationships and healthy love. I really wanted to find a way to bring what I teach here into tangible, practical support for every woman that listens. Again, whether or not you're ever in any of my programs, whether or not I ever get to see your face or hear your voice or touch your hand, which I hope to do, because I love loving on people. Again, I cannot wait until this October when I see my ladies, and then hopefully any other events I have in the future. But until then, I wanted to have this tool. And this was totally inspired by my amazing recovery school students. I love all of those women very dearly. I'm constantly thinking about them and wondering how they're doing, once they get what they need and they go off and do their transformation, or if they have their own heads down and they're working on things, or anytime I get an update, I always rejoice. And one of the things that I saw, or that I would hear from my students as they would graduate from the program or finish the program, is wanting to have support and how to keep the momentum going. So yes, access to tools, yes, access to support, but, just keeping straight all of the things that they've learned and experienced over those few months together in their everyday life. And so I've been wanting to do this for about a year or so now, and now it's here. And so I'm really excited. It will be launching this September. And the name of our company is going to be a branch off of Black Girls Heal, but the company is called The Loved Woman Co. And y'all, when I tell you I cannot I cannot wait. I cannot wait. So if you love planners, if you love journaling, if you love taking notes, if you love scripting, if you love cute stickers, if you love any of those things, if you love affirmations, and if you love just having tools to support you, and you enjoy what I teach here, and even if you're someone who doesn't completely align with everything that I teach, but you know that you love to have some parts of just remembering how to keep yourself first and prioritize your relationships at the same time. And you can still have a full life and your to-do list and be ambitious. Like, we don't have to choose. We can have balance. If that's you, I would love for you to get on the wait list to know when we launch. And so you can go directly to thelovedwoman.co, not com.co, and there'll be a wait list, and you can just go ahead and add your email address. I'm sure I'll be emailing something out to our newsletter and telling our text list as well for them to set up to add their names to the wait list as well, because it is going to be a separate company. I won't be using our same information. I want to make sure that people who will get the information that they want, and if they don't care about planners or stationery or journals and pretty things like that, then they won't get bothered with it. So yeah, I'm excited about this. And so that's what I've been working on. And then I will say personally, what helped me get here and having that space was I did mention on the list is that I was working through some imposter syndrome and comparing myself. And I just really needed this time to get clear on that it's okay for my voice to be where it is, that it's okay for me to teach in the way that I teach. And I love y'all. I'm in the space with some amazing women who are incredible teachers and colleagues, women who are clinicians, and, you know who they are, but they're famous therapists who write these incredible books, and they do incredible panels and speaking engagements, and they all have their own different platforms depending on what works for them, whether it's YouTube or Clubhouse or podcasts or whatever, or Instagram. And I love watching them shine. And then I have other women who are not mental health professionals, but they are relationship coaches or mindset coaches. And they also just help women get really clear. And I was like, I don't really fit in either of those categories. And I was starting to feel kind of overwhelmed with that, because I'm still a licensed therapist, but I'm not practicing therapy. And I put everything that I know and I teach into psychoeducational programs for women to take these tools and apply them in their own life. And I was like, I don't know what that looks like for me. And I was starting to get in my head about it. And so having this space to get clear on that has been really helpful. So yeah, y'all, that's it for now. Stay tuned for all of these updates, for all of these new resources coming for you via the planner, via the YouTube channel. And also, of course, the main way that I love helping women is working with women as their coach, as their relationship, love addiction, and healing coach. And so I'd actually stopped taking students and clients for a couple months now, because I needed to get clear on what these next steps were. But she's back, baby. So women who have already applied to work with me, people who have emailed me, I look forward to hopefully joining you in your life and journeying you in your journey, and then also equipping new coaches on my team to also support you as well. So that's it for today. I can't wait to join you again in your podcast player next week, or your YouTube channel, or wherever it is that you're listening to this. And as always, make sure you're taking care of yourselves. Shout out to our queens, Naomi and Simone, for leading the way and just reminding us how important it is for us to choose us and choose our health. And everything else will be okay. As long as you're okay, that's the most important thing that matters, y'all. So, all right. Love you. Have a great week, and I will talk to you next time. Hey, so thanks for listening to today's podcast. If you enjoy what you learned today, it doesn't have to stop here. Check out the Black Girls Heal website at blackgirlsheal.org for more resources to help you heal from intimacy disorders like love addiction and love avoidance. The best time to start or restart your healing journey is now. You can grab a free copy of our 5-step roadmap to heal love addiction, love avoidance, and love deprivation by going to blackgirlsheal.org/roadmap. And if you're on social media, feel free to follow us at Black Girls Heal on Instagram and Facebook.